Hi there. My name is Michelle Nicolo Prentice, and you're listening to Mama's Lullaby podcast, where we celebrate you and your journey to and through motherhood, the good, the hard, and the scary, giving you a place to be nurtured and mothered. You deserve it. Welcome. Hey guys, it's Michelle. Please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so we can keep you up to date on all the latest podcasts. Hello and welcome to Mama's Lullaby podcast. Welcome to my kitchen. This is my husband, Mark Prentice, and today's episode, we are going to talk about empty nesting. If you are one of those mamas who have lost their babies to adulthood, this is for you. And those of you that are not yet, this might be helpful maybe when the time does come. But anyway, thanks for doing this with me.
Yeah, because I love to do things
I know,
like this.
I know he does.
I love to be the public-facing person.
He hates it, but he's doing it for me because he loves me.
Indeed, I do.
And he helped me write this song that I wrote about my kids leaving the nest. So we have 3 kids. Gabby, Matt, and John, and I have a bonus daughter, Angelina. Anyway, the last child left home when he was 20 or 21, right? Something like that, Johnny. And I had gone off to Mexico for a retreat that my daughter was putting on, and Mark was here by himself. And I didn't think about that. I didn't think about how that would maybe affect you. I was kind of just being totally
Selfish. Is that the word you were searching for?
No, that was not the word.
Oh,
I was
self-indulgent?
I was just enjoying this time with my daughter,
Right.
In Mexico. So anyway, when I got back, it was so weird, the feeling in my house, because energetically when someone's in the house, even or when they live there, even if they're not there, energy, it's different when they live there versus when they don't live there. And so when I came home, it was so quiet and so. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And he's like, I've been sitting here by myself for a week.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you?
Well,
In all seriousness, if you can be.
no. So here's the backstory,
Yeah.
right? Like being married and having children was never ever on my radar. I know a lot of people think about that from the time they're a teenager, or they like, that's a big plan. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a family. Not on my radar. Well, I'm a musician, and I started playing with older guys just before I turned 15. And this was in the late 60s, and the world was a little different in how people looked at relationships. And then, all of them sort of local rock stars managed to impregnate somebody before they got out of high school or shortly thereafter. And one of a couple of things happened. We didn't call it that then, but either they were like a deadbeat dad, or, which was not cool with me. I came from a really great family, really supportive parents, so that wasn't cool. Or they were working 2 gas station jobs and they weren't musicians anymore because they had a family to support and they were fresh out of high school. So I was well on my way to being a rock star, and I was like, that's not for me. So I just, and as time went by, that was just a big part. I was not interested in that, and I actively disliked children. Was pretty vocal about it. So, I met this amazing woman. That's its own story, but she had these 2 beautiful kids. I fell in love with all of them. We got married and had a child our first year.
Yeah, 6 weeks after we were married, I was pregnant. Not on purpose, but
fabulous. No,
it wasn't. It worked out perfectly, actually.
Yeah, maybe not on purpose for you. Anyway, no, this is pretty wild. I was 42, I'd never been married, didn't have any kids. Suddenly I had 3, in the first year, but it was the best, as it turns out, the very best thing I ever did. So I went from being this sort of horrible, child-hating loudmouth that made fun of people that were married, to being the biggest goober dad and grandfather on the planet. Anyway, all of that to fast forward to this thing. So the home we live in is 3,200 square feet or something. I lived here before I married Michelle by myself, and I remember thinking, maybe I'd like to have a little bigger house, Then they all moved in, and the first time she took the kids and went away, I'm like, oh, this sucks. I got to go stay at a microtel or something. There's way too much room, So to her earlier point, our other kids had moved out, and our youngest son moved out, and Michelle went to Mexico to play and have a great time for a week.
That's right. As I deserved.
And I'm sitting here, and like it's like the opening scene of the last picture show. There's like tumbleweeds blowing across the living room and stuff.
He's so dramatic.
No, but it was weird. I mean, Johnny Levin, I'm sitting here, I'm like,
well, did you watch him walk out for the last time when he took all the stuff?
Yeah, and it was in slow motion. I had some music for it. No, I mean,
I'm serious. Like because I wasn't here. So what was it like?
He just, took the last thing, and we already knew where he was going to be. I mean,
yeah, he was just literally up the street. So it wasn't like he moved to another country or state.
2 miles from here. It's not like,
Yeah.
But it was really an interesting experience for me. It was very, very strange to have him move out. And I think when the older kids moved out, because he's 9 years younger than the next youngest child, I felt that when they moved, but they, we still had this little guy running around the house. So it wasn't, it just wasn't as poignant. And so he left, and I'm like, okay, this is really weird and really quiet, and I don't like it. It was a very emotional thing for me. It kind of caught me by surprise, because I want my children to be self-actualizing and take care of themselves and make their way in the world. And I don't want them to be dependent, interdependent, I suppose, but not dependent on us for anything. And so I support all of that. I was really happy that he was doing it. The time was right, but I wasn't prepared for what that felt like, so it was pretty weird. And then, Michelle comes home and is like, oh, this is sad. And I'm like, dude, get on board. You're way behind the curve here.
I don't think I even called to ask how you were, because
no, because you were selfish.
I didn't even think about it. I honestly didn't. Right. I was having such a great time. And, but anyway, no.
I'm okay with that. I didn't feel,
let it go. Let it go. A little tapping.
Anyway, no, I'm making a big thing up. But it really was very interesting and it's just an unexpected sort of different emotional experience.
You hear about it a lot, like how people talk about being empty nesters. And like there's a comedian who I just love. Her name's Leanne Morgan. And if you don't know, look her up. She's incredible, hysterical. She's from East Tennessee. And she talks about kids leaving, and she said I think it was her middle daughter, who was just so ornery and just hateful. She's like, I think God does that so that we won't mind when they leave, but Johnny wasn't like that. Like Johnny, I didn't really have troubles with Johnny. He and I were like super, a lot alike. We have a lot of fun together. We didn't really have that angst that me and Gabby might have had, or me and Matt had. It wasn't the same.
Well, you had a different experience.
Yeah, I was
a different
older
person when you had him. Yeah,
I was older and more settled in my life.
Opportunity to spend more time with him.
Yeah, I was more coherent. So I was a teenage mom. For those of you that may not know, I got pregnant in my senior year of high school. I had just gotten a full 4-year scholarship to University of Utah on a musical theater scholarship. I had just done the lead in Annie. And then by January, I was pregnant, and I got married like in June
whoa.
or May. I got married in May.
You've been married before?
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that.
Lord.
Yeah, I got married in May on a Saturday and went to school on a Monday. It was very bizarre. I had a kind of a bizarre childhood.
Did you sing like It's a Knocked Up Life instead of...
No, because I had already done that.
Oh, okay.
So I was not. But anyway, so as you can tell, he's really a smart aleck. It's one of the things I love about him. But anyway, so I had my older kids when I was a young mom. And there was a lot going on in my life. My first husband had a lot of addiction issues, which I was going to try and save him and fix him and all that stuff, only to realize I couldn't. And so by the time I married Mark, I had been through a lot of therapy. I had understood a lot more than I did before. And plus, you're older, you're more wiser. And so by the time I got pregnant with Johnny, I was in a settled marriage. I didn't have to worry about anything. And so I had a different experience for sure. And as you have more kids, you realize like you're a different person with each child. Each child gets a different mom to a certain degree. So when kids say, you didn't let me do that, and you didn't, it's not because you play favorites per se, in my experience anyway. It's just that you're different because you've grown and you've matured and things like that. But,
Sure.
But anyway, I came home and I don't know, I just felt so sad. I went up into his room, and it was, first of all, this helped a lot, actually.
Yeah, it was clean.
I went up into his, oh no, it was not clean.
Oh.
It was a disaster. He did not clean his room that he left. there was crap everywhere. So that helped me not be so sad the first day, because I was so mad about all this crap he left, and how dirty it was. And then, as time went on, when it was empty, I was like, I'm making that my room, and I'm going to, so I did. But anyway, I sat down at the piano one night. I don't know, I was just sitting there. I don't really play the piano, but I just happened to sit down, and this melody came to me, and and these words came to me, and I had them for, I don't know. Well, I'll read you the words real quick. It's called Bye Bye Birdie. And the first verse is, bye bye birdies, it's time to fly. Spread your wings and take to the sky. My birdies are flying. My birdies have all taken flight. So bye bye birdie, bye bye. And the second part of that is, silent rooms now, I just want to cry. I feel so lonely, so empty inside, 'cause my birdies are flying. My birdies have all taken flight. So bye bye birdies, bye bye. So that's all I had. I had that section. And for probably, I don't know, 3-4 years I had it. And I just couldn't sort of figure out what the next part of it was. So finally I asked Mark if he would finish it with me. And so we sat down and came up with a bridge.
Yeah, and then I wanted to turn it to sort of a hopeful thing at the end,
Yeah.
And so the last verse kind of speaks to all of that, and the bridge kind of is properly where it should kind of turn around,
right.
Yeah, but it's a great piece of music.
It is, and it's on all streaming platforms. You can go listen to it right now. You can go to mamaslullaby.com and upload the whole 2 volumes if you want. But with Mama's Lullaby, really what I'm trying to do is give you a place where you can be seen, heard, nurtured, loved, and mothered. Even if I can't physically be there to put my arms around you, because if you knew me, you'd know that I would want to, whether you want it or not. No, that's what Mark might think. But no, I just, I really have a heart for moms, because I've been a young mom and I've been through a lot of different situations, and I've watched a lot of moms, and we tend to silently suffer a lot. We tend to not acknowledge ourselves and what we need, because we're so busy taking care of our kids and our family, and that's good. But sort of like, if you go down, everybody goes down, right? So we have to take care of ourselves and be able to take the time to acknowledge the emotions, to speak what we need, to say what's bothering us, and that has been something that I've had to learn over the years, to actually say what I need and want, and it's been sort of a growing pattern with you and I both.
Well, and I was going to say, having had a lot of therapy before you married me was probably a really good idea, because I'm kind of an acquired taste, like scotch or something. But anyway, let's just show them. I mean, let's discuss the turn, because this does turn into a.
Yes, it does. Well, this is what I want to say before I read that. And our neighbor's mowing his lawn, so that's what you're hearing.
We're just keeping it real here.
Yeah,
at the Mama's Lullaby
you're in the
podcast.
kitchen. This is what
That's right.
happens
So
when we're in the
get it.
kitchen.
You get what you see is what you get.
But anyway, so the next part says, so many memories, so much love. These are the gifts that life's made of. So bye bye birdies, I'll be just fine. So many changes, but all in good time. And because my birdies are flying, and I know that we'll all be all right. So bye bye birdies, bye bye. And then the turnaround says, so bye bye birdies, fly, fly. And then my birdies are flying. Now it's time that I take to flight. So bye bye birdies, let's all fly. And so I wanted to talk about, like, it's my time now, because now I don't have,
driving me nuts.
sorry. And now I don't, welcome to my life.
Well, you're done reading it and it's blowing around. You don't need it anymore.
Oh, okay. You want me to turn this off?
That would have been a great idea.
I
when we
forgot
started.
about it.
That's all right.
Oh, well.
Leave it on now.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah, we're already doing it.
I hope you feel like you're at home with us, because you are.
That's right.
No, but I hear a lot of women, when their children leave, I hear them say, I don't know who I am anymore. And you do kind of have an identity crisis, because you have been a mom and you've been telling people what to do and how to do it, and you've been directing, and you've been, taking care of everything and everyone all the time. And then they start to grow up, and it's a really interesting time of life, because and I tend to be a little more that way naturally anyway. And Mark will say, why are you so bossy? Well, because I've been telling people what to do since I was, 18 years old as a mom. It's just
I'm gonna go
natural.
see if he'll mow a little closer to the house. I mean,
Maybe he'll mow our lawn too.
that's right.
But anyway, so finding out who you are. And so I've always been a singer, and I always sang. Even when I had children, I was able to be home with my kids, which I was so grateful to Mark for and to my first husband for. But I still got to do really neat things singing wise and whatever, but my kids were always a priority where that was concerned. But once they were gone and it was just me, and that's, I think that's the thing I want to say to you guys, is that before your kids leave the nest, remember the things that you loved doing, the things that you thought about or dreamed about. You're never too late. It's never, unless you're dead, it's not too late to start. I think Georgia O'Keeffe started painting at 80 something. Started painting in her 80s. I have a neighbor down the street, Nadine. She always wanted to run marathons. And when she turned 60, she decided to start training for a marathon. So I guess my point is, it's never too late to start something that you love, that you wanted, something that's for you and for you alone, and maybe it goes out in the world and maybe it's just for you, right? And so it's been really an interesting path to watch my kids become adults.
Yeah, it's great.
And know where my boundaries now are, because I was always used to telling them what they should do, and then they start rolling their eyes at me, or they stop calling me, or they stop coming over, or because I'm driving them crazy, but I didn't know. So I'm learning, and you do learn, and it is a growth process even when they become adults.
Well, and I've taken up the slack of you telling people what to do. I mean, that didn't stop. It just all.
Still
I
happens.
got all of it. I get the benefit of all.
That's
of it,
right.
Yeah.
I'll always tell you what to do, honey. Don't worry.
Well, no, I feel really good about it. So anyway, no, it's been interesting with all of the kids. I love seeing them turn into who they are and do their thing, and they're, they'll always be our children, but they're adults now. It's they have their lives, and those are their lives. And if they, I think we're a nice balance.
Yeah.
I don't tend to offer any advice until you ask me 2 or 3 times. And if you want Michelle's advice, just don't ask, But she can't, she's Italian, and there's that, and
I was raised with very strong women.
Yeah.
And
So,
very opinionated women.
It's a pretty nice balance, and I think we've struck that. And our kids are really, really exemplary, great human beings.
But they're not without issues and problems. I mean, I did things in my younger motherhood days that messed my kids up. I mean, not purposefully, of course. And there's just no real way to avoid that. And I think that's the other thing I want to say is that, when you first have a baby, you think, I'm going to do all these things, right? I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do that. Things that my mom did I didn't like, I'm not going to. You know what? You do the best you can. I say this all the time, but I truly believe it. You do the best you can with what you know. And as you know better, you do better. And that is the truth, because I think there's not a mother in the world who's a sane, healthy mother that doesn't want to do the best she can with her kids. There are moms who have a lot of problems, and they have some traumas that keep them from being able to sort of have that higher mindset. And I bless all those women, because it's being a mom is hard as it is. It's the hardest job you'll ever love, and sometimes you'll go, why did I do this? Matter of fact, a funny story was when our daughter had her baby, our granddaughter. We were just we were so excited. We didn't know the sex of the baby. And and we were just so anxiously awaiting. I went over there that morning because she had to have a C-section, and I got them ready, and they left, and I videotaped them leaving for the hospital and everything. And I come home, and we're waiting. And we get a phone call from my son-in-law, and he's like, okay, we had the baby. And I'm like, okay, everybody's good. Okay, what is it? He goes, you're going to have to wait like everyone else. And I went, what?
I'm like everyone else.
Like everyone else? Yeah. And I was so upset by that. Yeah. Now,
I thought the right answer to calm her down was to give her a shot of tequila. Which was exactly like throwing gasoline on the fire.
It was bad. It was. Yeah. I was so. Well, then he kind of fueled the fire. So my son-in-law had no idea what he had done. He didn't do that on purpose. He meant what he didn't say is that he was in this euphoric state, and he was so happy, And what he wanted to do was bring all of us together at one time to tell everyone, but he didn't tell me that.
Right.
He just said, you'll have to wait like everyone else or with her.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm the grandmother. I should be somewhat special.
I should say it's April of 2020, so we couldn't
it was
go
a
to the
wacky year. Well, we couldn't go to the hospital, right?
Or we would have been there. Trust me,
yeah.
whether they wanted us there or not. Anyway, the big reveal was that it was a little girl.
Yeah.
Which,
but before that, I was just so angry. So talk about like, in some of the podcasts, we've talked about how having children makes you grow. It shows you sort of where you have to grow and what you have to sort of show up for. And the chinks kind of in your armor in a sense. And boy, I had some chinks that day.
And then, after this was all over and we like unloaded on them, on Tony in particular, he was like, what? It was like, yeah, we were really mad at you. He's like, for what? It's just like, that's just that perception. So to that point, watching as we and you raise the kids, that's part of the stuff you can never figure out because children perceive things a certain way. And for a long time, or maybe always, but certainly when they're younger, the perception is the reality. And you may not know what that perception is. So some, sort of benign event may go by, but they saw something or heard something or misunderstood or believed something about that
was not intended by any
or that wasn't even there, but but that was the way they perceived it given what their knowledge base was, and maybe they didn't say anything about it, but it became this wound that carried on, and I mean it can be something really minor,
right?
But I watched that go down a couple times, just as the kids saying, Mom yelled at me. I'm like, I was sitting here, she never raised her voice. She just said no to you, But I mean, that perception was, this is horrible, and look, I think that anybody would say, any sane person would say, you'll learn a lot in this process, and there's things you would do differently. I can't tell you how many nights we, turning in for the night and looking at each other and going, do you think we're doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And you just. That's all you can do. There's no manual.
No.
Every kid's different, and
I want to acknowledge you single moms out there because I was a single mom for a while too, and I just my hat goes off to you. My heart goes out to you. In the years that I was a single mom, I mean, that's probably where I created the most trauma for my kids myself, not knowing it. I mean, I don't even know if I really did anything per se, but how they perceived it because we went through a divorce and there was a lot of, unheard emotions that I didn't know, and I didn't even know to ask. I was so young, I just really didn't understand. But having you there to help me raise the kids when I kind of tend to go emotional and not think clearly when they tell me stuff, and he tends to be very, grounded, and he's very good at not freaking out.
Well, and also, I mean, so my dad, who was a great guy, and I understood that when I was a kid, but as I got a little older, I really understood what a sort of evolved man he was for World War II, Depression era guy. He was a very exemplary guy. Anyway, he was 42 when I was born, I guess.
43, I thought. You're same age as when when John was born.
Without stretching the math, he could have been my grandfather. I mean, he could have got married at 20 and had a kid who got married at 20 and had a kid. And he could easily have been my grandfather, as I could for John, because I was 43 when he was born, I think. And what you give up maybe a little bit in sort of the physicality of being a young dad or whatever, I didn't really feel like I gave that up, but I understand that, because I remember watching some of my friends with young dads kind of coming into their full, being 18 and like a football, standout athlete. The dad's like, 30, 38, and he's starting to kind of not still be the guy he was when he was 18, and he's sort of jealous almost of his son or competitive or whatever. I think that extra generation of wisdom and experience, and so you can look at things from a little longer perspective, and I think, first of all, it was an amazing honor to raise your children there, and they're my children. I mean, but they're fabulous people, and it really was. It was great to have them in my life. But I think I was just able to look at some of those things from a little further away.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, with my I do daughter, my first daughter from my first marriage, Angelina, it's
your stepdaughter from your first marriage.
well, I call her I do
I
daughter.
know if that's not clear, people won't understand.
Well, Amy Grant calls her daughter her
She explains it the way you
stepdaughter. I know.
understand.
Well, I'm not the best explainer, but anyway, I'm not going to call her stepdaughter anymore because I love my I do daughter or my bonus daughter.
Right.
It was easy for me to hear her talk to me about things. I wasn't emotionally jarred by the things that she had to say as I was with the children that I carried and bore, you know. I don't know why that is exactly, but I mean, I love her as much as I love my other kids, and I do anything for her. But it's just kind of, you do have a bit of a separation where you can see them and you don't get so freaked out for some reason than when it's your own. I don't
Well,
know
you're
what
not
that's
living
about.
with them 24/7, 365, so
Yeah, I
you
guess so.
just perceive them a little differently, you know.
I guess so,
Yeah,
but
no, and I mean, all of this is a work in progress,
yeah,
you know,
it
just a
is. It
learning thing. It
is.
is right now for me, you know, watching my kids. Gab's be 39 this year, I guess, right? Maddie's 36. John just turned 27. You know, it's a really cool experience to be on more of a pure kind of relationship with them. They'll always be our kids,
Yeah.
but you know, I
Well,
like letting them do their thing and
yeah,
seeing what's
you do
going
it.
on.
You do. And that's why you're a good balance with me. But we did get some amazing advice. So if any of you have blended families, I want to share this with you because it really, really made a difference in our parenting process. Before we got married, we went to this amazing therapist, Dick Runyon, greatest soul I've maybe ever met. But
Amazing guy.
he said something to us that really made the difference of our raising our kids and how my kids react to Mark. And he said to them, "You're not their father. They have a father. You're their adult friend. Treat them like a niece or a nephew." And all of the rules come through the biological parent so that, you know, they're always going to love their mom or their dad or whoever the biological parent is, and even if they're upset at you. But if you make the other person be the bad guy or the rule maker, they will resent them, and it can cause rifts. And I watched it happen with my friends and their kids and their husbands, and I watched it tear up families. And so basically anything that we wanted them to do or any rule we wanted them to follow came through me as though it was my idea, even if it wasn't always my idea. And Mark would say,
Even for super simple things like bedtimes and stuff that probably wouldn't have mattered, you know, but
"You're not my dad. I don't have to
well,
use that kind of
Dick's whole
stuff."
thing was it wouldn't even have been that. It's just don't step into their lives as some sort of like primary authority figure. You know, let that be something that you ease into, right? And
Right.
even long after that probably mattered, we just kept doing it anyway
Yeah.
because it was working. It wasn't broke, you know.
And my kids will still go to him before they come to me to
Well,
this
about
day.
certain things, about certain
A lot of
things,
things,
not
but
about- yeah.
but that was the best advice we could
Yeah,
have
because
ever
then they,
had.
you know, they'd come and try to work that angle with me,
And
and
you
I
would-
would just say, "Hey, look, your mom makes the rules. You know,
Yeah,
I'm just here to back her up."
And
you
you'd
know?
say, "I'm scared of her. I can't, we have
Well,
to do what
that's
she
true,
says."
by the way. Michelle's 4'11". She thinks she's
I'm not-
5'2", but
I'm 5'2".
every once in a while, I'll come in the kitchen and hug her and think, "You're so small. Why am I so afraid of you?" This is, you know. But then
Big
Mike
personality.
Reed, who's 6 a million, says, "You just try saying no to her." You know? True
I am
that.
persistent
True
to say
that.
nothing.
True that.
Professionally persistent, I am.
That's one word for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Rottweiler's another.
oh well, get what I want, right?
Oh, they're beautiful too.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just kind of wanted to talk about empty nesting, and I hope that something in this talk today speaks to you or helps you, or at least makes you feel like you're not alone. And
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too that that really did draw a line. It is your time to fly, and that's why you're doing this.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
And
no,
it
it's
really
true.
was the time took a minute to step back and kind of say to yourself, "Who am I?" And then you realized you had this thing you'd been working on, and you really kind of, so we're where we are now,
Yeah.
because of that. I think,
Yeah, no, it's true. It's
just
true.
one of the many things that kind of nudged you in this direction.
It's true. And I've always sort of surrogately mothered other people's kids when they come to Nashville and they don't have their family here. Having been a kid who lost her dad when I was 10, it was really when I go to people's homes and they made me feel like a part of the family, that was so huge for me to not feel so alone. And so I really tried to do that with all the kids that have come through this house, whether they were my kids' friends or people that we just met, and so it's really, and I know there's a lot of people like that out there that are mothering people in that way. It's an important job. So keep it up. They need us. We need to be available for them and for each other and to help support one another. And that's our goal here at Mama's Lullaby, to support you, tell you you're doing a great job. I know you're doing the best you can with what you have, and as you know better, you will do better, because that's what we want, the best for our kids and ourselves.
So mamaslullaby.com.
Yes.
Look in the notes below and download the app.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Available on all streaming platforms. Go to YouTube if you want to see our pretty faces. Everywhere else it's audio.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And we're going to have a lot more podcasts. So if you get my app, it'll keep you up to date on everything new that's coming out. We have merch. We have cups. We have tops. We have blankets. We have CDs. Not that anybody has a CD player anymore, but especially you kids out there.
You kids. Oh, you kids.
Anyway, we just want to support you however we can, and put some comments in if you liked the podcast and the subject matter. If there's something you'd like us to talk about or bring someone on to talk about, let us know. We're really, really wanting to just create a huge library of help, so that we're there for you 24/7 anytime you need us. All right. So be nice to yourself. Be kind. Speak kindly to yourself and others, as Amy Grant says. I love that. And we'll see you on the next Mama's Lullaby podcast. Bye.
Bye bye birdies, it's time to fly. Spread your wings and take to the sky. My birdies are flying, my birdies have all taken flight. So bye bye birdies,